What's up, college football fans? It's your boy Mizzy. I'm here today to go over the Ole Miss 2026 schedule. I'm gonna go over the positive and negatives first, then we'll get into the season. And everybody, like, comment, subscribe, share the video. We're trying to get to my goal really is to get to 500 subscribers before the season starts. I say if we don't make it, that's perfectly fine, but just a goal that I want to reach. First off, we got to speak about it, man. Last year, Ole Miss, all the drama, Lane Kiffin leaving for LSU, just leaving Ole Miss high and dry. Like I say, Pete Golden there taking over, and then like I said, going 2-1 in the playoffs, beating Georgia. Like I said, almost beating Miami. I think they lost 31-27 if I'm remembering correctly. Trinidad Shamblers jumping on the scene, just electric. Going into this season, I think they had MGM bet. They had alliance for teams. I think they had Ole Miss at 7.5 wins, which was kind of surprisingly low for me because I just have higher expectations for this team than most. But anyways, guys, Trinidad, like I said, him being eligible to come back, I know people feel how they want to feel about that. I don't necessarily love it, but it is what it is. And like I say, he's back on the team. Trinidad last year, he passed for nearly 4,000 yards, ran for over 500 yards, had about 8 touchdowns on the ground, 20 plus in the air. He was just, and then like I said, he didn't start the entire season. I think he came in like the third game in the year. I say third or fourth game, somewhere around there. But man, I really think I don't know what people have him on the Heisman. How they had a preseason Heisman, 1 through 5, whatever the ranking. For me, Trinidad is number 1 as far as Heisman contention. Even the best defensive teams out there, I just think he's a hard cover, man. He's a guy that keep defensive coordinators up at night. It's a lot of times we see guys that I don't know how he will progress in the NFL and how he'll be there. But as far as college football, I think he's just like say a generational college football talent. Because like I say, he can run the ball, he can pass it. He has every, like I say, if he was maybe 3-4 inches taller, he probably would be talked about even more. But like I say, he has all the tools in the box. Like I say, he can do everything. Like I say, and he runs the offense efficient. One thing about Trinidad, I like, most time when you see quarterbacks who can run as good as he can, a lot of times they fall in love with the run so much that they'll neglect the passing. He doesn't. Like I said, he has great pocket awareness, and he can pick a defense apart. We seen in that UGA game, man, if you make a mistake, if you're not covering your assignment, he's going to find some way to exploit it. And like I said, he's just, like I said, this year, he will be a big key component. Ole Miss will live and die with Trinidad Shamblers. Like I say, I would as well. And like I say, this right here, in my opinion, is, I don't know if it's the best backfield, but it's definitely, it got to be top 3 going into the season. We never know in college football how the season will turn out because, like I say, especially right now, year to year is so different with the transfer portal and all that. So we'll see how everything shakes out. But man, Lacey last year, he had 1,500 rushing yards, 24 rushing touchdowns. He was a monster. Lacey was a monster. Even with the O-line struggling the way it did, he still figured out ways to get the ball in the end zone. And one thing about this O-line coming into the season, which that probably is my biggest concern for Ole Miss, the interior linemen, they said are shored up. They have who they have for the interior linemen. They're trying to figure out as far as the tackles, who will be starting for them positions. And especially in the SEC, playing so many tough defenses and D-lines and big guys, you want to have that spot shored up. One thing that kind of gives me confidence, though, is even if the O-line isn't, top 20 in the nation or whatever, with Trinidad being able to, move the pocket, he can scramble. I think you don't have to have, say like Ty Simpson, for example, for Alabama. And Ty Simpson was a good. He's a good athlete, but Trinidad is like an elite athlete. So say like an offensive line that if it was a quarterback more stationary, that you really need protection, like a Tom Brady, somebody like that. But when you have a quarterback like Trinidad, more of a Lamar Jackson, you're so athletic that you can move around and, like I say, you can still manipulate the pocket and still get your throw off. So I think, like I say, the offensive line is my biggest question for the team, but I'm not as worried just because I think Trinidad, he kind of nullifies some stuff. When you're such a great player, sometimes you just nullify certain things. But like I say, one of the interesting things is you will have a new play caller. Charlie Weiss went with Lane Kiffin to LSU. Like I said, and that's gonna be a consistent thing of the year, comparing Ole Miss to LSU, how both teams are doing. Once Alabama lost last year, I found myself kind of rooting for Ole Miss the first time ever. Because like I said, being in the SEC, I never root for no other teams really ever. But it was something about Lane leaving them and the coach, almost like that underdog Mighty Duck story. The team that nobody thinks can win. And like I say, came close to going to the championship. I don't know if they would have beat Indiana. I probably would have still had Indiana just because of defense. But like I say, Charlie Weiss is gone, so you have a new play caller. But when you have a quarterback like Trinidad, it gives you a lot. You can open up the playbook fully. So like I say, it should be a top 15 offense easily. It definitely should be. Like I say, even with the teams they're gonna play, I think this team is just gonna be hard to stop on defense. And far as another concern, Ole Miss defense, which Pete Golden, that's his calling card, really, defense. So we're going to see how that correlates. The team last year, when you looked at Ole Miss, they was an offensive-minded team, primarily because of Lane Kiffin and with Pete Golden being there. Is we going to see the defense start to step up some? Because remember the UGA game earlier in the year, Ole Miss probably should have won, and they didn't because, like I say, they couldn't get no stops. And then eventually Georgia got some stops on Ole Miss. And then, like I say, this year they do have 7 key players coming from the transfer portal on defense, a plethora of guys. So, like I say, we'll see, how that shakes out. Will they be great acquisitions? Will they not? It's hard now. I say with every year, so many rosters are getting reshuffled. But, I guess coaches are starting to get used to it. Pete Golden, this is his first year far as just being, the full year. He came in last year once Lane left, coached through the playoffs. He did do that great, but now, it's kind of different when you're not surprising nobody. Everybody knows how great Trinidad is. Everybody knows how great Kyron Lacey is. They see this team coming. Like I say, they have a lot of high expectations. And, you're not going to be sneaking up on nobody this year. You're not going to sneak up on nobody. Everybody knows how dangerous this team is. So we'll see how that goes, guys. And like I say, man, after all that, man, let's get into the schedule for the Rebels right now. So first off, guys, we got Louisville on the schedule September 6th for the first game. This right here should be an easy win. I do like Louisville. Louisville has some talent. And I'm not gonna lie, Louisville, they're a sneaky team. But like I said, I think Trinidad, his coming out party, I think it will be early. I can see this game, him putting up a 40 ball this game. Because like I said, I think he's gonna be in Heisman contention from the jump. Because especially with what's coming in the season, the Ole Miss kind of want to hit the ground running. Next, you're playing Charlotte, September 12th. That's a win, obviously. We're not even going to speak about that too much. Then, guys, this is where, and I kind of love this, because I'm not an Ole Miss or LSU fan. If I was a fan of either one, I would rather this game later in the year. Because, early in the year, you're still trying to find yourself. You may not be the best team or what the team you'll become. But LSU, Ole Miss, man. Then, like I say, at Ole Miss. This right here, I don't remember the last time I was this excited for a regular season game that wasn't an Alabama game. This game is going to be electric. It's going to be one of the ones that It's gonna be a lot of contention. I hope. Well, I don't even have to hope this. I know, of course, Lane will have, it'll be security with him. When Lane's walking through the tunnel, I'm expecting people to be throwing stuff. I'm not saying they're right, but I know how fans will be. Fans will be drunk. They will be drinking. They will be throwing stuff. And like I say, when you leave a team like that, and then like I say, don't let Ole Miss come out there and just win. It's gonna, like I say, it's gonna be one of the ones. And LSU, I like Sam Levitt. I like a lot what LSU is doing. LSU has a lot of talent, but they also have a lot of players that came in the transfer portal. And because Sam Levitt, he was banged up. I know he's cleared now, but he hasn't got the full off season because, like I said, he's been banged up. So this game, I'm going to pick Ole Miss. I know a lot of people are going to roll with LSU. I'm picking Ole Miss primarily off of the emotion of the game. And I think Ole Miss is a good team. I think Ole Miss will give up points, but I think this game right here is one of those games, a 40-35, 41-35, a 35-31 game. I think both teams, it could be who gets the ball last. Like I say, of course, LSU could come out here and win this game. We all know that. Like I say, super talented roster. We know that for sure. But I just think Ole Miss will come in, shock the world. Maybe not shock the world because, like I said, Ole Miss isn't like a staple right now. Lane trying to build them to something. But I think that game, probably LSU, I would assume LSU would be favored slightly, or maybe a pick 'em just because it is at Ole Miss. And, especially early in the season, it's kind of hard to say because, both teams are trying to, they're trying to build on the year. But like I said, I got Ole Miss winning that game. I'm thinking a shootout. Like I say, I'm thinking a high-scoring game. I'm not seeing a 15-10 or a low-scoring game. Then you're at Florida. The reason I'm picking LSU, not LSU, guys. The reason I'm picking Ole Miss this game is primarily because Florida is a young team. And with Trinidad coming back, that's why it's so important now. We seen with Indiana, you want to have a roster that has, of course, young, talented players, but you also want to have a veteran experience in the locker room. It's almost like, the matter of fact, it's almost like the Knicks just playing the Spurs in the championship. We seen a young, talented Spurs team, and we seen a Knicks team that was talented, but had more veteran presence and what that means to closing games. I think Florida will play a good game. Florida, Florida, a team, they record may not show it at times, but they lose a lot of close games lately. I think Florida will make this a tough game. Florida defense is always pretty good. So I think Ole Miss will win this, and like I say, it may be closer than expected. Then you're at Vanderbilt. I'm picking Ole Miss this game strictly almost not at the same, but Diego Pavio, he's gone. You got a freshman quarterback. I just think Ole Miss is gonna be too much firepower. Then you're back in like I say, Ole Miss playing Missouri. Missouri is a team that Missouri is one of those teams in the SEC that's always solid. They're not spectacular. They're not horrible. Like last year, they was a good, solid team. And was the running back, his name Amari, I can't think of it right now. But he got shot not too long ago, maybe a couple months ago. Hopefully he's well and he'll be playing in the season. Hoping his recovery is going good. But I got Ole Miss winning it just because I don't think that Missouri just has enough firepower. And to beat this Ole Miss team, you're gonna either have to have a high scoring offense or a defense that's just real street. Because when you're playing a QB like Trinidad, you got to have a defense that's playing their gaps, A gap, B gap. You got to have a defense that doesn't break what they're supposed to be doing. Because if you at any moment, if you don't contain him, like I said, he could be down the field hitting his head on the goalpost. But then, like I said, we got Ole Miss beating Missouri. So Right there, we got them 6-0 guys. Then this is probably their tough part of their schedule this next 4 weeks. So at Texas, October 24th. This game right here, I'm assuming I'm assuming Arch Manning will be in Heisman contention as well going into this part of the season. So you'll have Trinidad versus Arch. That will be a narrative going into this game. I'm gonna pick Texas this game, guys, and it's not gonna be strictly because of Cam Coleman or Texas offense. I think Texas defense is really gonna be great this year, and I think they'll even though Trinidad doesn't throw many interceptions, I think he might have 3 or 4 interceptions for the entire year last year. Yes, I know he only played. He came in with game 3 or 4, so that wasn't the entire year. But I got Texas winning this game because Texas defense, I think, will get enough stops on Trinidad. And like I say, it's at Texas. We all know in college football how important it is when you're playing on the road. That crowd, like I say, that it's almost like if anybody played college football, it's almost like the stadium pulse on college football. So I got Texas winning that one. I think that game would be more of a 28-21 game. Like I said, I still think Ole Miss will be in the game, but I just think Texas is going to be a better football team entirely. Then you play Auburn. It's funny because Auburn, I would tell folks, Auburn is always a tricky team because every year you never know what Auburn will be. When Auburn does become a good team, I promise you, we won't see it coming. I don't think Auburn is going to be that team this year. I did an Auburn prediction already. Any Auburn fans, anybody didn't see it, can go back and watch it. But I think Ole Miss wins this game. Like I say, Auburn, their defense is always pretty good. So I could see this game, Trinidad having a couple of turnovers and, being one of those games that people were surprised that Auburn was in it for 3.5 quarters, and then maybe late in the game, as Auburn has done probably the last 6 or 7 years, Auburn finds a way to lose by 10 or 14 points and make it like a 21, matter of fact, not 21, 24-17 game or something like that. So like I said, I got Auburn losing that game. I got Ole Miss winning. So at this point, I got them losing only 1 game to Texas. Then they're playing Georgia, a rematch from the playoffs last year where Ole Miss shocked Georgia. I wasn't surprised Ole Miss beat Georgia strictly because I watched Georgia a lot because one of my best friends, he's a Georgia fan, so I watch them a lot more nowadays than I used to. And I just think that I just think watching Georgia last year and then coming into this year, I got Gunner stopped. And then I did a Georgia prediction as well. Anybody want to watch it? I got Georgia this season really being a top 17. So I think Georgia is going to win this game, especially because it's a rematch from the playoffs. I think Kirby and the crew is going to be like, hold on, guys. Like, we got to establish, this is one of those games that it's playoff contention on the line. You're trying to establish, that you're the dominant team in the SEC. So I think Georgia may come in this game. I think Georgia may come in this game and win this game by 2 touchdowns. I can see this being a game that Georgia comes in and take care of business and try to get this game over earlier than later. Because you don't want Trinidad with the ball in his hands late in the game and it's a close game. You don't want that, Georgia fans. So like I said, I got Georgia winning them at this point. So then, like I say, this 4-game slate, I got them already losing 1 game, losing 2 games. So then they're at Oklahoma. This is going to be interesting, guys, because it's late in the year. Oklahoma defense is, stifling. Like their defense plays. But John Mateer, you know, he's been talked about so much, and I haven't. I know last year he was banged up too, but I just haven't seen the John Mateer that everybody says he's supposed to be. You know, he's supposed to be just this practically superstar quarterback, but it's like something hasn't clicked for it. Like I said, even with at times he'll have a game that, you know, a good game, but he doesn't string along good games. Then he'll have a game that's just like a one that had you scratching your head and you like, dang, what was going on that game? But I got Ole Miss winning at Oklahoma. So like I say, at this point, I got them on that road trip going 2-2. Like I say, losing to Texas, beating Auburn, losing to Georgia, and winning at Oklahoma. And like I say, the SEC is so good, guys, that I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, anything changed if Oklahoma came in there and won the game. Then you're playing Warford. You know, this is that it's almost like Alabama before they play Auburn. Before you play your rival, you play a just what some people say a cupcake game, you know, an easy game. You play your starters they're out the game and resting. Then, like I say, I got Ole Miss winning it. Then you play Mississippi State, the Egg Bowl, as everybody knows it to be. So this right here, guys, you know, of course, since it's a rival, and I haven't looked into Mississippi State team yet, you know, really to deep dive into it. But I've just from, you know, last year and what I've seen a little bit, I got Ole Miss winning this game. Like I said, I know it's a rival game, but for some reason, I just can't see Ole Miss losing it. So, because I think Ole Miss is going back to the college football playoffs. I know a lot of people thinking that, you know, they're going to fall off a map this year and, you know, they're not going to make it. Like I say, we'll see. You know, with this schedule, Ole Miss has a potential. I think that if I was going like from a bottom scale, I would think the worst that this schedule I see them being is 8-4, and the best I would see them being probably 11-1. But I got them going, like I say, 10-2 for the year, guys. So that's my prediction for the season. Shout out to Ole Miss fans. Like I say, man, you know, y'all don't have Bama on the schedule this year, so lucky for y'all. But anyways, guys, like, comment, subscribe, share, and hey, on the road to college football, guys. Let's get to 500 subscribers. Share this with everybody in your family, you know, that love college football as much as we love it.